Italian authorities have strengthened heat warnings at the start of a brutally hot week and on a day that's set to be one of the hottest ever recorded. It comes on the back of a string of heat records being broken across the world. Parts of southern Europe could reach close to 50 Celsius over the next few days. Italy is set to be one of the worst affected countries. From Rome, here's our Europe editor, James Mates.
There are queues all over Rome today, but not for the Colosseum or the Pantheon. The most sought-after sights by far are the water fountains. In the roasting sun, temperatures touching 39 degrees and heading higher. Parasols and fans are near essential. The occasional mist spray has been set up by the authorities to tempt people out of their air-conditioned hotel rooms. For some it has worked, many others staying indoors or gathering in the only cool spot in Rome, the Trevi fountains. But even here the fresh blue water is just for looking at. Police are on standby in case any are tempted to jump in and cool off.
It's hot and we're from Cairns.
But even for you?
It's even hotter.
Yeah.
We meant to go to Amalfi Coast. I had to cancel it because it's quite hot out there at the moment.
That would be too hot.
Yeah, that would be too hot. Yeah, I'm going to go back tomorrow maybe to London.
I wish I could take a dip in this fountain back here.
Yeah, me too. So August will be more than this. I know because I'm Italian, so I live here and I know that this will be like this.
Terrifying.
Terrifying, yeah.
And that's the point. It isn't even the hottest part of the year. One of Italy's most senior climate scientists is watching what is happening across the continent with ever-increasing alarm.
Is it climate or is it weather?
Well, clearly it's climate. I mean, it's proven by the data. I mean, there is a correlation of an incredible increase of CO2 and incredible variation in the global temperature. The impression that we have is that the situation is even worse than we thought.
Italy is far from alone. Wildfires raging in the Canary Islands, likewise in the hills around Athens, while the Greek capital too swelters in temperatures touching 40 degrees. The long-term threat faces all of us, of course, but in the short term, the summer tourist seasons in these countries is increasingly in jeopardy. Italy's La Dolce Vita, its outdoor cafe society, is struggling in what is the second heat wave already this summer. How much longer before people decide this isn't just hot, it's too hot?
So, James, how concerned are authorities about the days ahead then?
Well, they're very worried. I mean, it's been unbearably hot today. Tomorrow, 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 degrees higher. But then going into the rest of the week in southern Italy and Sardinia and Sicily, it's staying this hot right through next weekend. Now, everybody knows how, not just the impact it has on tourism, which is easy to film, but the impact it has on the old and the sick and the vulnerable. In recent heat waves in France and in Italy, there have been tens of thousands of excess deaths recorded because of excessive heat. Hospitals are in danger of being overcrowded, even overrun here, so they're having to send doctors out to visit the elderly and the sick and to check that they are all right. All of this for a newly elected right-wing government here, which in many ways came to power on the back of voter unhappiness at the costs and the inconvenience of net zero. They are now having to recognise the fact that what we're looking at here is a new normal. They had a 2-year drought followed by torrential rain in the north. On every level, the climate here is becoming altogether more unpredictable and is costing the government a very great deal of money and a great deal of worry.
OK, James, thanks very much. Well, Becky's joined us to talk more on this, and James alluded to it there. It is likely to get hotter as the week goes on. What sort of heat are we looking at here?
Well, it's difficult to know at this stage. All I can say is we haven't yet reached the peak of the heat. The heat across southern Europe is likely to intensify over the next few days. Temperatures widely reaching above 35, up to 45 degrees for some areas, climbing above that as well. Think about how we felt last summer when we hit one day of 40.3 degrees. Overnight, there's no real relief either. Temperatures staying up well into the 20s. So really, people are not sleeping either. You just know how that feels, and we had such a brief moment of it last summer. And you can see on the European map just how widespread this heat event is. The pink and purple tones indicating to the most intense and extreme values. Over the next few days, there's perhaps a little bit of good news for Spain and Portugal as the focus of the hottest temperatures trips a little bit further eastwards there towards Italy and Greece. And it's not just Europe. Highs are also hitting 47 degrees in Phoenix, Arizona. That's 5 degrees above the seasonal average. But I would rather be in Arizona than in Death Valley, California, where temperatures there are reaching an unbelievable 51 degrees. That's 11 degrees above where it should be. And the heat is on in China as well, hugely above average, 48 degrees for them. And it really is an incredibly hot picture, fairly widely. Generally speaking, there is no doubt about it. This is a very serious and very worrying global climate event.
OK, Becky, thanks very much for that. Becky will join us later with a full forecast. But if you need more information on what your rights are for changing your holidays impacted by the heatwave, of course, we're heading into the summer holidays, then do head to our website at itv.com/news. Here, the government has, in the last hour, released its plans on how to adapt to climate change. It outlines how it will protect infrastructure, food production and promote a greener economy. But it's also been criticised as falling far short of protecting lives and livelihoods. Earlier, the Prime Minister spoke to ITV News about protecting the planet. Our political correspondent, Romilly Weeks, is over at Westminster. So, Romilly, what did he say exactly?
Well, not that much really, Charlene, which is quite surprising on the day that the blistering heat in Europe really underlines how important it is that the UK has a plan in place to adapt to the changing climate. I was speaking to him before that report that you were talking about came out. It was rushed out today after it was leaked and then instantly criticised. And it does set out how the UK intends to put in place measures to adapt to the changing climate, including pledging £5.2 billion for new flood and coastal defences, investing £2.2 billion in making our water supply more resilient, bolstering the health system so it's better adapted to deal with severe and frequent weather events, and setting out how schools, hospitals and other infrastructure will avoid overheating and climate-related disruption. But the Climate Change Committee, which said in March that the UK was strikingly underprepared for adapting to climate change, has said that this plan represents progress, but also it's not a plan containing extensive new commitments. The argument for a stronger response has not been won across government. Before the report was published, I asked the Prime Minister whether he was serious about tackling climate change.
We're seeing record temperatures across Europe, wildfires in Canada. Why is climate change not one of your 5 key priorities?
I think those are the 5 immediate priorities that I think the country wants us to focus on. Our track record on climate change is second to none. If you look at the large developed countries around the world that we are compared to...
And yet you've just had Zach Goldsmith quitting because he says you're not committed enough.
Well, that's one person's view. Here are the facts. Not one of those big, large countries has decarbonised faster than the UK over the past few decades. That's the reality of it.
The Prime Minister was noticeably more comfortable talking about the action the government is taking against eco-protesters like Just Stop Oil, rather than the measures that the government is putting in place looking forward in tackling climate change. The problem for the government is that all these extreme weather events are really putting the issue right back into the forefront of people's minds.
OK, Rob, thanks very much.